Welcome to Stop the Fight, episode 24, and today we are discussing this weekend's action. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And he's strong man, good boy, just.
All right, we have another bit of a slow week in August. The dog days of summer. Sometimes we get boxing, we get lucky, and a lot of times it's just a break before the fall action, especially in August. Kind of rare. So we have another kind of light week, but we do have some fights. We have Luis Collazo taking on Aminadis Stanionis. Now, we've seen Luis Collazo fight plenty of times. He's an older veteran. He's 40 years old now, 39-8 with 20 knockouts and 2 defeats coming by the way of knockout, 2 of his 8 defeats. Now, Luis Collazo, for me, will always be remembered for his knockout over Victor Ortiz, second round knockout over Victor Ortiz in 2014. Now, at this point, we weren't sure that Victor Ortiz is done. I mean, we had reason to believe that he is done and that he's mentally just not in the game anymore. Something's amiss. But it wasn't really, for me personally, until Luis Collazo got rid of him in 2 rounds that I was like, yeah, that's really it for Victor Ortiz. Whatever it is, whatever happened with Victor, to go from such a rising up-and-comer to kind of getting knocked out in 2 by Luis Collazo, and to having all the headspace issues that he's been dealing with, that Victor Collazo fight kind of sealed it for me. Now, Victor Collazo, of course, had fought the undefeated Andre Berto back in the day, Shane Mosley. He's really fought the gambit of fighters. Recently, 6 years ago, it's 6 years ago now, he fought Keith Thurman, losing there by knockout in the 7th round. Now, what does he have left? Well, I mean, a veteran like Luis Collazo is always brought in against guys like Stanionis to kind of test him, to see where Stanionis is. Sometimes it's to make Stanionis look good. And if Stanionis can't look good, you kind of see that maybe the limit is not that high for Stanionis. Let's talk about Stanionis a little bit, because we watched his last fight. Stanionis, you're 13-0 with 9 knockout, undefeated, 26-year-old prospect from Lithuania. He lives here in Cali. He's an inch shorter than Collazo at 5'8", Collazo being 5'9", and recently we saw him go to the decision against Thomas Delmore, however you want to pronounce it. It was a wide but competitive fight. I think Stanionis tried to get him out early and wasn't able to. I don't know if you guys seen the fight. It was a welterweight, obviously. He wasn't able to get him out of there, and I think Stanionis' power is running into a roadblock at 147 pounds. Meaning, a lot of up-and-coming, a lot of prospects, everyone looks like a power puncher, unless they're really not. Most people look like power punchers on their way up. It's only when they start to get in the top 20 and certainly the top 10 that their power seems to, fall off. Keith one-time Thurman, let's talk about Keith Thurman a little bit here, he was knocking everybody out until he really started to fight good opposition. And once he started to fight, real top 10 and world-level guys, he stopped getting KOs. Robert Guerrero couldn't stop him. Sean Porter couldn't stop him. Danny Garcia couldn't stop him. Lost to Pacquiao, nearly got knocked out by Lopez. The one-time Thurman became, was a pastime, had been one time. He's no longer one time. He can hit you with a lot, and he still won't put you out, not at the highest level. And I think with Stanionis, you kind of see a similar thing. He's a guy who has respectable power, but is not the power puncher. He's not going to be a guy who's going to absolutely stop you. You have to be super worried about his power. Not really. Respectable, good power, but not a one-shot kind of guy. So what can we expect here? Well, like I said, I think this is a ceiling test for Stanionis. A good one at that, because I think Luis Collazo can show you a few things in the ring. He can get a little dirty. He can fight low if he needs to. He may throw wide shots to kind of, hit you in the back of the head a little bit. A good test for an up-and-coming Stanionis. The problem with Luis Collazo is that he has a lot of wear and tear and is 40 years old. That's a big deal. He he fought 2 years ago now, and when you take 2 years off in your late 30s and early 40s, that's a lot of ring rust. I don't mention ring rust often, simply because, well, I think it's a thing, but not for most fighters. I think the older you are, the more true ring rust is. When you're young, I don't think ring rust is a real big thing because you're probably getting a lot of hard sparring in at the gym anyway. And whilst fighting and sparring is not the same thing, your body doesn't slow down like that. But in your late 30s, like with Collazo, taking 2 years off, I think that can play a big game. Now, so I'm not really betting on this fight. I'm not taking any bets, but I would think that Staniosis is probably going to get the stoppage later in the round, later in the fight. Why? Well, because like I said, I think he is the significantly younger, stronger fighter. Even if he's not the crazy power puncher, I think he has enough to get Collazo out of there. I think Collazo's going to have a lot of trouble dealing with the young man. Like I said, Collazo's already been knocked out twice, once by Keith Thurman, actually. And at 40 years old, I don't like his chances. I don't like his chances whatsoever. Now, let's move on to another fight this weekend. We have Kid Galahad versus James Dickens. Now, Kid Galahad is 27-1 with 16 knockouts. Lone defeat coming by split decision loss to Warrington. Josh Warrington of England. Now, they're both English fighters. British fighters, I should say. Kid Galahad is originally from Qatar. And he is 5'6.5". He's fighting against James Dickens, who is 30-3 with 11 knockouts and 2 defeats coming by way of knockout. 30-year-old kid. Notable losses include Rigondeaux, who he was stopped by in the second round. Apparently broken jaw. Now, this is one of those fights where Kid Galahad is still collecting wins since the Warrington fight. He can't rematch Josh Warrington. Why? Well, as we all know, Warrington was upset by Mauricio Lara, and he's having a rematch there, which I don't necessarily think. I don't necessarily think he can win that rematch. I think Warrington has a problem with being such a low power output kind of guy. Remember, he's 30. Wins with 7 knockouts against Mauricio Lara, who can just sit, take the shots, and throw in between them. I've said it many times. Where you beat a guy who's throwing a lot at you is just throw counters in between his combinations. Now, so Kid Galahad, I think he's going to beat Dickens. I do, but you have to remember that Dickens does have a respectable win. He has a majority decision victory over Leigh Wood, who just upset Can Hu. And when a fighter has a victory, like Dickens has against Wood, sometimes their confidence is elevated. He saw that Wood went on and did something. His own confidence is going to be elevated. But I do not think this is going to be enough. I think Kid Galahad is a pretty good fighter. I won't say very good. He's a pretty good fighter. He is, at featherweight, everybody's fast. But I think he's faster than James Dickens. I think he's got a better defense. I think he's got a better punch selection. So I think we should see a clear decision victory for Galahad with a possibility of a stoppage here. Again, I think the bookies have him at a -300 or -200 or something. It seems about right. Dickens is like something around there as well, plus 150 or something like that. I think those odds are right. You could take Dickens, but I just when a fighter has 11 knockouts in his 30 fights, he's not going to get the other fighter out. So it becomes a battle of two kind of boxers in this case, because Galahad's not particularly a power puncher either, but he's going to be the better boxer. So when two boxers are going at each other, the better boxer is going to win. In this case, it's going to be Galahad. So I expect Galahad to kind of just walk over Dickens and take the decision or late stoppage. Now we have some. Let's talk about some news, just some general rumors. UFC champion Kamaru Usman wants to take on Canelo Alvarez in a boxing ring. Now I know Canelo is probably not the biggest fan of these type of these type of like gimmicky fights, let's say. But I think fighting Usman would be a good one here. Usman, you know, I don't really watch MMA too much, but I've seen his recent fights, and he knocked out what's his name, the Cuban, Masvidal. And now I think he's believed that he can box. Well, usually when people start calling out your name, you start calling the champ, and you want to cross over, when they do that, I think you should give him the chance to get knocked out in the ring. And I think Canelo would really put the hurt on Usman. Really. Usman is a wrestler. He's not a boxer. And I think Canelo will absolutely stop him. Even though Usman is significantly bigger than him. I don't think it will matter here. I believe Canelo currently is in his prime. And we still don't know what's even happening for September since the planned fight fell through. He's without an opponent. Now, of course, I don't think Dana White allows Usman, one of his cash kings and one of his stars, to go out and get knocked out by Canelo. So this fight is almost absolutely not happening. As much as it would be nice to see him get knocked out. It's not happening, guys. So you can forget about it. Really is. I don't think Dana White wants any more UFC fighters getting embarrassed in a boxing ring. Now let's talk about some boxing rumors. Leonard Elbert believes that Gervonta Davis could be the fight against Keith Thurman. Gervonta Davis could be made, and not only does he believe it could be made, he believes that Gervonta Davis will knock Thurman out. I don't know. I don't think Thurman is particularly, you know, it's like a half Thurman episode over here. I don't think Thurman is a particularly easy fighter to knock out. I believe it can happen. Obviously, we saw Lopez hurt him. I think at points he was, you know, he obviously was knocked out by Manny Pacquiao. And I think at points he was hurt in that fight. Will he knock him out? Well, Thurman's not too big. Thurman being 5'7.5" is only a few inches bigger than Gervonta Davis. And I believe if they were to make that fight, I believe Thurman really is in trouble. I don't know if it's guaranteed that he gets knocked out, but I think Thurman would be in trouble there. It seems like since his injuries, Thurman is just not quite the same. He'd taken many years off. You know, he had only 3 fights since 2016. Now that is very sparse in terms of activity for a fighter. Very sparse. You know, he was fighting a couple of times a year until right around 2016 when his injury started to get the better of him. He had one fight against Sean Porter, split decision victory over Danny Garcia, then took 2 years off and didn't look particularly good against Jose Cito Lopez before finally losing to Manny Pacquiao 2 years ago. But hasn't fought since. You know, Mr. One-Time Thurman, you know, to speak more on him, is approaching what I believe is ring rust. He's over 30 now. You know, he started his career in 2007. So, coming in there against Gervonta Davis, who has been fighting recently, is probably a recipe for disaster. It probably is something that will lead to a knockout for Thurman. And especially because Gervonta Davis on the cloud 9, beating undefeated fighters. No. I don't know. If I were Thurman, this is not a fight that I would want to take. It is a payday. You know, Gervonta Davis is also one of the cash cows in boxing, so it absolutely will be a payday. But do you want to go to losing a close fight to Manny Pacquiao and then getting knocked out potentially against Gervonta Davis? Where does he go from here? Well, I think his career is kind of over were he to lose. So if I were Keith Thurman and I'm looking to continue my career, the first fighter I'm fighting after a 2-year layoff is not Gervonta Davis, who will absolutely take advantage of every single timing issue that I have, because Gervonta Davis is a counterpuncher. He would walk Thurman down and potentially KO him. So I don't want that fight for Thurman. I think Thurman needs a tune-up, or at least something to actually, in this case, probably get some ring rust off, because in this case, he probably does have it. Let's talk about a little bit about Olympic boxing, because since the change a few years ago with the pros fighting in Olympic boxing, I think it's gotten a little bit better. I enjoy Olympic boxing. I enjoy all boxing, but the U.S. has 2 medals, which is honestly, in the past few Olympics, over the past 15 years, the U.S. has had atrocious showings in the Olympics. The last good U.S. Olympian, the last Olympian who went on to do great things was Andre Ward. And that was from 2004. You know, so what do we have going on? As of today, and today is a Thursday, August the 5th, if we look at the Olympic boxing medaling, we kind of see what we would expect: Cuba and Russia on top. But Japan is also up there, so that's kind of nice. So you have Cubans with 2 gold medals, 1 bronze, 3 medals total. The Russians with 1 gold medal and 3 bronze, 4 medals total. Japanese with 1 gold, 2 bronze, 3 medals total. Great Britain 2 silver, 2 bronze, and the United States 1 silver, 1 bronze. You feel for the Americans a little bit, but we're back in a way, right? This is about as good of a showing as we could have hoped. Obviously today you had the loss of, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name real quick. Duke. There we go. Duke Reagan wound up losing against the Russian Batyr Giaziev. And, that was a legit hope for a gold medal for us in the U.S., but it wasn't meant to be. But it's okay, because here we are. We're kind of winning our prestige back. Not every single Olympics is going to have Holyfields and Wards, but it is nice for us to at least get some medals. In 2016 we had 1 gold medalist with Clarissa Shields, and here in Japan we almost had another. I know we still have a couple of medals on the line that we can win, especially in the women's. So we're going to be rooting for athletes, but I really hope that the U.S. spends more time in bringing up our amateur athletes and our Olympic team, because, well, I think the Olympics is a great way to showcase your sport. And, if we're boxing fans, we want to showcase the sport as much as possible. That's what I keep saying about some of these gimmicky fights you see on Triller, or the YouTubers. I don't care if the competition level is lower. As long as more people get eyes on boxing, our sport grows, and that's all I really care about. I want the talent level overall to increase, and the way that you increase your overall talent level in the sport is by having more participants. So, obviously, because the more participants, the more chance you get a genetic phenom or someone who's extraordinarily dedicated, and you have these rare talents start to emerge. But you need a large sample size. You can't have 10 people in the whole country fighting and expect there to be many greats. Well, guys, this is going to be a short episode today. Again, we have a light week. We're going to talk about some more things over the weekend on a Sunday or on a Monday, and then I'll see you guys then. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And he's strong man, good boy, just.